Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Buki Sheila. If you are new to my channel, you're very welcome, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm very excited today to show you how I made this gorgeous Chanel style tweed jacket with 4 pouch pockets and gold embellished button. This project turned out to be one of a kind. I am extremely excited. Now for the pattern, I made use of my DARTLESS bodice pattern. The tutorial is on my channel. The link will be on the card if you are interested in the pattern. So for this pattern, the front and back pattern is on the same block, but for you to use it you have to trace them out separately. Now for the length of my jacket, I went below the waistline, about 4 inches below the waistline, and this is my traced out pattern. I added a 1-inch button stand. I also drew the shape of my pouch pockets on the pattern, and I added my seam allowance. For the sleeve, I am making use of the 2-piece sleeve. I also have the tutorial on my channel. The link will be on the card above. And now I'm going to cut out the pattern. I'm just adding my seam allowance to the button stand, and then I'll cut out the pattern. Here are my pattern cut out. I also have my pocket pattern, and as you can see it has ×4, and I also trace out the same pattern for the lining piece, as this is a full lined jacket. So on the shoulder of the back lining piece, I measured 8 centimeters and then drew the line. So that part of the back lining would be the tweed fabric, and I connected it to a point above the back line, and this is me just placing the pattern on top of the main pattern. So you see it's exactly the same pattern. The only difference is the lining pattern does not have the 1-inch hemming allowance. The same goes for the front lining pattern. It's exactly the same. The difference is the 1-inch hemming allowance. Now from the shoulder, I also measured 8 centimeters, and then I drew my curved line. So the center front of the lining piece will also be the tweed fabric, and that's me outlining the line. And I'll add my 0.5 seam allowance to join the piece back together once I cut on fabric. Okay, so here are my pattern ready. Next, these are my tools. So I've got the seam tape, I've got my shoulder pad. This is a small shoulder pad. You don't need those very big shoulder pad. I've got my lightweight interfacing, I've got my lining fabric, and I also have my main tweed fabric. So the tweed fabric, I'm using 2 meters. This lining piece is giving navy blue, but I ordered black anyways. It's not gonna be obvious, it's not going to show on the jacket. So this is me prepping my fabric and matching the lines. On this channel, the main focus is detail. We pay attention to detail, so I'm trying to match all the lines to make sure all the lines matches seamlessly on my fabric patterns. Okay, so I'll try as much as I can, and then I'll cut out my pattern pieces. So here, after cutting out my fabric, I'm using a contrast thread to baste around the main point, the hem line, the waistline, the armor point, the mid armor, the shoulder. I also baste around the pocket. So this basting stitch will basically help me match all these points together when I am sewing, and it will help me place the pocket on the right place. I've also cut out the interfacing. The front of the jacket will be fully interfaced, while the back and the sleeve I'll be using 2 inches wide straps of interfacing on the seam allowance area and on the hem line. Now I'm going to place my sheer fabric on top before I press. So I know a lot of you would be wondering, what is this sheer fabric? So basically what this fabric does is it helps eliminate those shines that our iron leaves on our clothes. And the good thing about this particular one is that it's made of a top quality sheer fabric and it is see-through. So when you use it, you still see your clothes, you still see the parts that you are trying to press or iron. And I'm also using this seam tape. This is very important if you're working with fabric that tend to stretch when you move them around. So I'll be using this to stabilize the neckline, the armhole and the shoulder line. So no matter how I move this piece around, it's not going to stretch. Everything I use on this video will be listed down below on the description box. So if you are interested in any of the item, make sure to use my link so I can make enough qualified purchase to be accepted in the associate program. At the moment, I'm not making any commission, but if I'm able to make enough qualified purchase, I might be accepted and start making commission in the future. So if you gain any value from my content and you want to support me in this journey and you are interested in the item, make sure to purchase using my link. And please note, when you use my link, it does not change the price of the item. It's still the same price you would pay if you buy directly from Amazon. Okay, so do not forget to support your girl. Let's support one another. I'm also going to overlock all the raw edges of the fabric to stop them from fraying. And here is what my pieces look like after ironing the interfacing and the seam tape. And as you can see on the back I used 2 inches wide straps of interfacing all around this part. I also interfaced the tweed part of the lining and I based around the pocket area. Now before we start sewing, we need to sew our pocket to the front jacket, and for the pocket everything is hand stitch. The pocket is fully interfaced and fully lined, and everything about the pocket is hand stitch. This is more like a couture sewing. You don't want to start seeing like stitches on the pocket, so everything is done by hand, and I'm going to create a separate video for the pocket if you are interested in learning how to sew your couture pocket. This is a Chanel style jacket, so you want to you want to up your game. Okay, so as you can see, this is the front of the jacket and this is where I'm going to be placing my pocket. And like I said earlier, I based all the points, the center, which is the midpoint, which is where I'm pinning right now, the side, the bottom, the corners, like every single thing is highlighted for easy sewing. So now I'm just pinning my pocket according to the basting, and I'm going to unstitch the pocket. So like I said, this is a very long process, so I'm just going to show you a bit of how I sewed this by hand. But if you want to watch the full video on the pocket, there will be a separate video on the pocket. Okay, so now I'm just pinning to make sure, as you can see, I'm also following the pattern of the fabric, the lines, so the line of the fabric and continue into the pocket, so everything aligns. So this is how much I'm paying attention to detail. And now with my needle and thread, I'm going to start sewing my pockets into my jacket with a catch stitch. So a catch stitch is a stitch where you pick a tiny bit from the jacket piece and also pick a tiny bit from the pocket piece, and it's gonna be like a blind stitch. You're not going to be able to see any of the stitch at the end, so just pay much attention to this part, and the full video of the pockets will be on a separate video. At the beginning, I'll sew that point a couple of times to properly secure it down to the jacket, and as I move forward, I'll start moving the pins, following the basting stitch and still making sure I match the patterns of the fabric to the pocket as much as I can. If you want to get the classic Chanel style jacket finishing, you have to work for it, girl. So I'm gonna shut up and let you enjoy the video for now. And 10 years later, this is what they look like after unstitching the 4 pockets. Now I'm just taking out the basting stitch, and the next step will be to pin the front and the back right side facing each other, matching those points I basted earlier, and then I'll move over to my sewing machine to start sewing. And after sewing, I'm gonna give it a good press and you would see the beauty of this and stitch. Now I'm also folding up the 1 inch hemming allowance we have on the main fabric. So I'm just using my ruler to confirm that I only fold up 1 inch. So the reason why the main fabric has the 1 inch hemming allowance and the lining does not have any hemming allowance is because when I sew both of them together with half an inch seam allowance, this 1 inch is going to make up for the remaining half an inch on the main fabric is going to make up for the lining hemming allowance. So therefore the seam is going to be moved into the jacket. It's going to be moved upward. You know, this is a jacket, the hemming seam is normally moved upward, so you can't see it. I hope that makes sense. So I'm still repeating the same thing on the sleeve pattern, folding up the 1 inch hemming allowance. So once I'm done with that, I'll place my sleeve pieces right side facing each other. This is a two-piece sleeve like I mentioned earlier. If you watch the tutorial, you would understand how everything was made, and I also notched my sleeve on the tutorial. So the back piece of the sleeve has got double notched, while the front side has got just single notch. So this is how I'm going to know which side is the front and which is the back. Okay, so as you can see, I've got two threads on this part of the sleeve, and this is to remind me that that's the back part of the sleeve. Okay, so I'm going to take this to my sewing machine, sew it together, give it a good press, and then we can join the sleeve to the jacket.
Some kind of butterfly, baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me high and dry. Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're channeling wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly, baby, you.
So I've gone ahead to press my sleeve, and now it's time to join the sleeve and the jacket together. But before I pin the sleeve and the jacket, I did a gathered stitch on the head of the sleeve. This is because there is always a little bit of excess on the sleeve part. So now I'm gonna start pinning my jacket and sleeve together, matching all the points. And when I get to the head part of the sleeve, I'm going to pull that gathered stitch I made to conceal the extra fabric on the sleeve part. And I'll take this to my sewing machine. So once I'm done sewing, I'll pull out the gathered stitch, then take the piece to my ironing board and give it a good press. So the reason for doing this gathered, like I said, is to conceal the extra fabric. So the gather will be very thin, that you can't even see it on the right side of the sleeve. This is just gonna give the sleeve a little bit of volume. Okay,
Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh.
so the other part of the sleeve also off camera. I already feel this video is too long, so I'm just trying to cover up all the important parts I need to show you. So once I'm done sewing, I'll take out the gathered stitch, then I'll make a stitch header. So this is a 4 centimeter by 40 centimeter piece cut on the tweed fabric. Is not stretchy at all. So I'll fold this piece in two, then cut it, then I'll fold it into two again, just like this. Then I'll trim off the edges to make a rounded shape that would fit on the head of the sleeve. So basically a sleeve header is just a piece you sew close to the head of the sleeve to add more volume to the sleeve. So I'll repeat the same thing on the other piece, blend the edges, and then I would overlock them off camera. Next, I'll press the head of my sleeve, but as you can see, I'm pressing from the jacket side, from the shoulder side of the sleeve, and not from the sleeve side, because we want to retain the volume we made with the gathered on the sleeve. So press nicely on the jacket side. Now after overlocking that piece, I'll fold it in half, get the midpoint like this, then I'll start pinning close to the seam as much as possible. So this piece will be sewn to the seam allowance of the jacket and the sleeve as close as possible. The seam will be inside, you can't see it on the right side. This is just gonna add more volume to the sleeve. So, and this is me on my sewing machine trying to sew that piece as close to the seam of the sleeve head. And once I'm done sewing, I would sew in my shoulder pad. Like I said earlier on the video, on this Chanel style jacket you don't need a very big shoulder pad. That's why I'm adding the sleeve header to also, you know, adds to the volume. So I'm using a very small shoulder pad. This is about 5 millimeter wide. So I'm going to get the midpoint, match it to the head of the sleeve, and then I would stitch this to the sleeve. And voila, this is the main part of the jacket. Finished, almost finished though, not completely done. So the next clip, I'm just going to take you back on how I prep my lining piece. So I remember I showed you this piece at the beginning of the video. So this is how I separated the lining piece, and when I cut on the fabric, I will add 0.5 seam allowance on both sides to join them back together. Okay, also on the back piece, as you could see, I wrote it down so we don't make any mistake. And these are the piece when they are cut. I also cut out my sleeve, and so I'll sew this piece off camera because it's exactly the same way we made the main jacket. Okay, so now I'm going to get my lining piece. This is 8 sewn. The back is pleated by 3 centimeters. I also added my brand label, and now I'm going to pin the lining and the main piece right side facing each other, matching all our points. Okay, so you see, this is the importance of marking your points, like your main points, baste them, or if you've got like a pen that would show on the fabric, it's best to highlight them so it's easier for you to match them when sewing. Okay, so I'm gonna do this, match all my points together, then I will sew them together. Okay, so on the hem line of the jacket, so when I'm pinning that part, you're gonna see how I pulled the lining piece, because the lining piece is obviously shorter than the main piece. So I'm gonna pull the lining piece to meet with the main fabric. As you can see, I'll pull that bit now so it meets with the hem of the fabric, and then I'll take it to my sewing machine, sew the bottom part to a point, and then I'll show you what I did next.
You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me high and dry. Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're channeling wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite.
So I have gone ahead to sew the bottom to a point on both sides. Now I'm going to take off the pin and then fold the seam allowance on the hem upward. So please, I need your attention on this part. So the seam allowance on the hem on the bottom, both seam allowance are meant to be folded upward and not one facing up and the other facing downward. So please make sure the both seam allowance are facing upward. Do not make the same mistake I made. I later unpicked this and I did it again, but I do not have that part of the video, so please, so this is how it's meant to be. Look at these parts, watch, look. So they are meant to be facing upward, but look at me still opening them up. So please do it right. Okay, so after sewing with half an inch seam allowance, this is what it's look like. Now I'm going to trim off all the edges to reduce bulk, then I will turn the jacket to the right side.
Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly.
So I also top stitch the lining part of the jacket. I top stitch on the button stand area and on the neckline as much as I could to keep the lining piece inside. And now it's time to do what I need to do before the end of the video. If you've watched this video to this point and you've not subscribed, please, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? If you've learned a thing or two, please do not forget to like, share this video so it could reach more people, and most importantly, do not forget to subscribe. This is the way you could show your support to the channel, and subscription is completely free. Okay, let's support this channel, let's grow this channel together. So this is the jacket turned to the right side and all the points are matching. I feel so proud of myself right now. So we're almost done. So now is to sew the sleeve together. So I'll put the sleeve in. So watch, please pay attention to this part. So I'm just getting this, I took the sleeve out just to make sure everything is straight, because you don't want to get this part twisted. So watch me. I'm gonna pull the sleeve in and then I'll use my other hand to hold the seams together, and then watch. So I'll hold the seam together and then pull my hand through the opening at the bottom of the jacket, then go through in between the sleeve and I'll pull the lining and the main sleeve out from the opening. Okay, as you can see, I'm holding the seam allowance together because I don't want this part to be twisted, and now I'm going to match them perfectly pin it round, and I'll sew with half an inch seam allowance.
Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, 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 oh,
So I've gone ahead to sew them together with half an inch seam allowance, and now I'm going to push the seam allowance towards the main part of the sleeve, and I'll do blind stitch all around the hem of the sleeve. So basically what I'm trying to do is to secure the seam allowance to the main part of the sleeve with a blind stitch, and this is gonna help keep the lining piece inside the jacket, so it will stop the lining piece from poking out from the jacket. And so this is it. After this, I'm going to also finish up the opening on the hem of the jacket with an hand stitch, add my gold embellished buttons, and do the button hole off camera, and you would see the finished results. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for liking, thank you for subscribing, and I'll see you soon on my next video.
well, I don't wanna jinx it, baby, and twist myself at the spine. Don't wanna overthink it, baby. It's just twist your body and mine. Baby, you give me ice and fire.
And here is your girl in Paris wearing her handmade Chanel style tweed jacket made with love, and she got a lot of compliments. So do not forget to subscribe and follow me on my social media. Bonjour, bonsoir, and au revoir.